The scream that echoed through the valley that summer morning in 1878 made Preston Cole drop his hammer mid-swing, the sound cutting through the Montana air like a blade through silk. He stood frozen for only a moment before his instincts took over, his hand moving to the revolver at his hip as he scanned the horizon beyond his ranch. The sound had come from the direction of his barn, a desperate, terrified cry that made his blood run cold. Preston was not a man who scared easily. At 26 years old, he had survived the tail end of the Civil War as a boy, watched his father build this ranch from nothing, and inherited it when fever took both his parents 3 years back. He had faced down rustlers, fought off wolves, and weathered Montana winters that could freeze a man solid. But something about that scream made every hair on his body stand on end. He ran toward the barn, his boots kicking up dust on the hard, packed earth. The door stood slightly ajar, swaying in the morning breeze. Preston slowed his approach, drawing his weapon and using his shoulder to push the door open wider. The familiar smell of hay and horses greeted him, everything appearing normal at first glance. His 2 horses, Maverick and Sable, stood calmly in their stalls, undisturbed. "Hello," Preston called out, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through him. "Anyone here?" Silence answered him. He moved deeper into the barn, his eyes adjusting to the dimmer light. Then he heard it, a small sound, almost like a whimper coming from above. The hayloft. Preston looked up at the wooden ladder leading to the upper level where he stored his winter hay. Someone was up there. "I am armed," he called out, keeping his voice firm but not threatening. "And I will not hurt you if you mean no harm. Come down from there." Another whimper, this one followed by what sounded like sobbing. Preston holstered his weapon and climbed the ladder slowly, making sure his movements were loud enough to be heard. He did not want to startle whoever was hiding up there. When his head cleared the loft floor, he stopped, his eyes widening at the sight before him. A young woman was pressed into the far corner of the hayloft, partially buried in loose hay, her whole body trembling violently. Her dress, once probably a respectable calico print, was torn and filthy, covered in dirt and what looked like dried blood. Her auburn hair had come loose from whatever style it had been in, hanging in tangles around her face. But it was her eyes that struck Preston most, wide and terrified, like a cornered animal that expected to be killed at any moment. "Please," she whispered, her voice hoarse and broken. "Please do not hurt me, please." Preston immediately raised both hands, showing he was no threat. "Madam, I am not going to hurt you. This is my barn, my ranch. My name is Preston Cole. You are safe here." She did not move, just continued to shake, her arms wrapped around herself. Now that he was closer, Preston could see more details that made his jaw clench. Bruises marked her arms, dark purple and yellow. A cut on her lip had scabbed over. Her feet were bare and bloody, as if she had run a long distance over rough ground. "What happened to you?" Preston asked gently, pulling himself fully into the loft but staying near the ladder, giving her space. "Who did this?" The woman's eyes filled with tears that spilled down her dirty cheeks. "They are going to find me," she said, her voice rising in panic. "They are going to find me and take me back, and he will kill me this time. I know he will. I should not have run. I should not have run." "Nobody is going to take you anywhere," Preston said firmly. "Not from my property. You are under my protection now, do you understand?" She stared at him, her chest heaving with panicked breaths. "You do not understand. You do not know who he is, what he can do." "Then tell me," Preston said, slowly lowering himself to sit cross-legged on the loft floor, making himself less intimidating. "Tell me who you are running from." The woman's trembling intensified, but after a long moment she spoke. "My name is Catherine Walsh." My father sold me to pay his gambling debts 6 months ago. Sold me to Marcus Thornton like I was livestock. Preston knew that name. Everyone in this part of Montana knew Marcus Thornton. The man owned half of Weaverville and controlled most of the mining operations in the area. He was rich, powerful, and rumored to be ruthless with anyone who crossed him. Thornton, Preston said quietly. You were his wife, his property, Catherine corrected bitterly. He never married me, just kept me locked in that house, used me however he wanted, beat me when I displeased him. I was not the first. There were 2 others before me. One died, the other disappeared, and I think I know why. Preston felt rage building in his chest, hot and fierce. How did you get away? Last night he came home drunk, angrier than I had ever seen him. He started hitting me, saying he was going to kill me, that I was worthless. He passed out eventually. I waited until I was sure he was unconscious, and then I ran. I did not even take shoes. I just ran. I did not know where I was going. I walked all night. When I saw your barn as the sun was coming up, I thought I could hide here just for a little while before I kept moving. You cannot keep running, Preston said. Look at you. You are hurt, exhausted. You would not last another day out there on foot. I do not have a choice, Catherine said, fresh tears streaming down her face. He will come for me. He will send his men. They will search every ranch, every building. He will find me. Preston stood up slowly, watching as she flinched at his movement. Listen to me, Catherine Walsh. You are not going to run anymore. You are not going to hide. I am going to protect you, and that is a promise. She laughed, a broken, hopeless sound. How? You are one man. He has dozens working for him. I am one man who keeps his word, Preston said. And I will not let anyone take you from here against your will. Now, will you come down from this loft? Let me get you cleaned up, fed, and those wounds tended to. Catherine stared at him for a long moment, as if trying to determine if he was telling the truth or just another man who would hurt her. Finally, slowly, she nodded. Preston climbed down the ladder first, then stood at the bottom, ready to help her. She moved stiffly, her body clearly in pain, and when she reached the ladder, her hands shook so badly she could barely grip the rungs. Take your time, Preston said quietly. I am right here if you fall. She made it down 3 rungs before her exhausted body gave out. Preston caught her easily, steadying her with gentle hands. She immediately pulled away from his touch, and he let her go, stepping back to give her space. My house is just across the yard, he said. Can you walk, or do you need help? I can walk, Catherine said, though her legs shook with every step. Preston walked beside her, close enough to catch her if she fell but far enough away not to crowd her. When they reached his house, a modest 2-story structure his father had built, he held the door open for her. Catherine hesitated at the threshold, looking around as if expecting an ambush. It is just me here, Preston said. I live alone since my parents passed. No one else. She stepped inside, her eyes darting around the main room. It was clean and orderly if simply furnished. A stone fireplace dominated one wall with a kitchen area taking up the back. A table and chairs sat near the window, and a comfortable chair rested beside the fireplace. Sit, Preston said, gesturing to the chair. I will get water heating for a bath. You have blood and dirt everywhere, and I need to see how badly you are hurt. Catherine sank into the chair as if her legs could not hold her anymore. Preston worked efficiently, stoking the fire in the kitchen stove and setting pots of water to heat. He pulled out an old washtub from the back room and positioned it near the fire for warmth. I do not have women's clothing, he said apologetically. But I have clean shirts and pants that we can make work for now. They will be too big, but better than what you are wearing. Catherine looked down at her ruined dress and nodded numbly. Preston gathered supplies, clean towels, soap, bandages, and salve for her wounds. As the water heated, he poured her a glass of water from the pump and brought it to her along with a chunk of bread and some preserved meat. "Eat slowly," he advised. "If you have not eaten in a while, too much too fast will make you sick." She took the food with shaking hands, eating like she was starving, which she probably was. Preston busied himself with preparing the bath, testing the water temperature and adding cold to make it comfortable. When it was ready, he set the towels and clean clothes nearby. "There you go," he said. "Take your time. I will be outside, working on the fence by the north pasture. When you are done and dressed, just open the door and call for me. I will not come in until you say so." Catherine looked at him with those haunted eyes. "Why are you helping me? You do not know me. You do not owe me anything." Preston met her gaze steadily. "Because it is the right thing to do. Because no woman deserves to be treated the way you have been. And because I meant what I said. You are under my protection now, and I do not break my promises." He left before she could respond, closing the door firmly behind him. As he walked toward the pasture, his mind raced. He knew Thornton would come looking for Catherine. The man's pride alone would demand it. Preston needed a plan, needed to figure out how to keep her safe against a man with money and power. But first, she needed to heal, needed to feel safe enough to stop trembling. Inside, Catherine stared at the door Preston had closed, hardly believing what was happening. Every instinct screamed at her not to trust him, not to trust any man. But he had not hurt her, had not forced himself on her, had not even touched her except to keep her from falling. That was more than she could say for Marcus Thornton or her own father, who had sold her like cattle to settle his debts. She stripped off her ruined dress with difficulty, her body aching with every movement. When she caught sight of herself in the small mirror hanging on the wall, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Bruises covered her torso, arms, and legs. The cut on her lip was matched by another on her cheekbone. She looked like she had been trampled by horses. The warm water of the bath was pure heaven when she sank into it. Catherine let out a small sob of relief as the heat soothed her battered body. She scrubbed herself thoroughly, washing away the dirt, the blood, the feeling of Marcus Thornton's hands on her skin. The water turned brown and murky, but she kept washing until she felt somewhat clean again. Dressing in Preston's clothes was awkward. The shirt hung past her thighs, and the pants required rolling up at the ankles and cinching tight with a belt. But they were clean and soft and smelled like soap and fresh air instead of fear and violence. She looked around the house more carefully now, seeing details she had missed before. Books lined a shelf near the fireplace. A Bible sat on the small table beside the chair. Photographs in simple frames showed a stern-looking man and a kind-faced woman, probably Preston's parents. Everything was neat and cared for, the home of someone who took pride in his space. Catherine opened the door and stepped out onto the porch, shading her eyes against the bright sunlight. She could see Preston in the distance, working on a section of fence, his movements steady and sure. When she called his name, he immediately set down his tools and walked back toward the house. "Feeling better?" he asked as he approached, careful to keep his distance. "Yes," Catherine said quietly. "Thank you for all of this. I do not know how I will ever repay you." "You do not need to repay me," Preston said. "But I do need to look at those wounds, make sure nothing needs serious doctoring. Is that all right?" Catherine tensed but nodded. They went back inside and Preston gestured for her to sit at the table. He washed his hands thoroughly before carefully examining the cut on her lip and face. His touch was gentle, clinical, nothing like the violence she was used to. "These are healing already," he said. "What about your feet?" "You ran barefoot?" Catherine extended one foot, wincing at the pain. The soles were cut and battered. Preston knelt down, carefully cleaning each wound and applying salve before wrapping them in clean bandages. His hands were steady and sure, the hands of someone used to tending livestock and probably his own injuries. "You will need to stay off these as much as possible for a few days," he said. "Give them time to heal." "I cannot stay here," Catherine protested. "When he comes looking, when his men come, I do not want you to get hurt because of me." Preston stood, looking down at her with an expression that was both gentle and absolutely immovable. "I told you, you are under my protection. That means something to me. I do not run from fights, and I do not hand over people who need help." "You do not understand what he is capable of," Catherine said desperately. "He has money influence. He could have you arrested, run off your land, or worse." "Let me worry about that," Preston said. "Right now, you need rest. The bedroom upstairs is yours. I will sleep down here by the fire. You will be safe. I give you my word." Catherine wanted to argue more, but exhaustion was pulling at her like a physical weight. The combination of the warm bath, food in her stomach, and feeling clean for the first time in months was overwhelming. Preston must have seen it in her face because he gently guided her toward the stairs. The bedroom was simple but comfortable, with a large bed covered in a quilt and a window overlooking the mountains in the distance. Catherine sank onto the bed, and her body seemed to melt into the mattress. Preston pulled the quilt over her. "Sleep," he said quietly. "I will be downstairs. If you need anything, just call." Catherine wanted to thank him again, wanted to ask why he was being so kind, but sleep dragged her under before she could form the words. Preston stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her sleep. Even in rest, she looked tense, ready to bolt at the slightest sound. He had seen that look before in horses that had been broken badly, mistreated until they trusted no one. It made his blood boil to think of what she had endured. He went back downstairs and stood at the window, looking out at his land. This ranch represented everything his parents had worked for, everything they had built. But Preston knew he would risk it all to keep Catherine safe. Some things mattered more than property. The question was how to handle Thornton. The man would come, probably sooner rather than later. When he realized Catherine was gone, he would send men to search every property within riding distance. Preston needed allies, needed help. He could not defend against a dozen armed men alone. The answer came to him as he watched the sun move across the sky. Jack Morrison. Jack was his nearest neighbor, living about 5 miles west. They had helped each other through rough times, watched each other's backs during disputes with rustlers. Jack was a good man, quick with a gun and loyal to his friends. He would help, but Preston could not leave Catherine alone, not yet. He would wait until she woke, make sure she felt secure, and then ride to Jack's place. They needed a plan, and they needed it fast. Catherine slept through the afternoon and into the evening. Preston used the time to prepare, checking his ammunition, cleaning his weapons, and making sure the house was secure. He cooked a simple stew for dinner, something hearty that would help Catherine regain her strength. When she finally emerged from the bedroom, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. She looked better than she had that morning, though still pale and drawn. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, still damp from her bath. "I made dinner," Preston said, ladling stew into bowls. "You should eat." They sat at the table together, and Catherine ate slowly, still careful not to overwhelm her empty stomach. Preston watched her between bites of his own food, trying not to stare but unable to help himself. Even battered and exhausted, there was something striking about her. The way she held herself with a kind of dignity despite everything she had been through, the intelligence in her eyes, the strength it must have taken to run, to fight for her freedom. "Tell me about Marcus Thornton," Preston said finally. "Everything you know." His habits, his men, how he operates. If I am going to protect you from him, I need to know what I am up against." Catherine set down her spoon, her hands beginning to shake again. "He is not a good man. He pretends to be respectable, goes to church on Sundays, donates to the town causes. But behind closed doors, he is a monster. He has 5 men who work directly for him, rough types who do not ask questions. Henry Burke is the worst of them, his right hand. Burke is the one who will come looking for me first." "What about the law?" Preston asked. "The sheriff," Catherine laughed bitterly. "Marcus Thornton owns Sheriff Daniels. The man would arrest me for theft before he would arrest Marcus for anything. There is no law that will help me." Preston nodded slowly. He had suspected as much. Corruption was not uncommon in mining towns where one man held most of the wealth. "Then we handle this ourselves. I have a friend, Jack Morrison. He is a good man, someone I trust. I want to ride over to his place tomorrow, talk to him." "Will you be all right here alone for a few hours?" Fear flashed across Catherine's face. "What if they come while you are gone?" "They will not," Preston said with confidence he did not entirely feel. "It will take them time to organize a search. Marcus probably did not realize you were gone until this morning. His men would have started by searching the immediate area around Weaverville. It will be at least another day or two before they start checking the outlying ranches. I will be back long before then." Catherine did not look convinced, but she nodded. "All right, but please be careful. If Marcus finds out you are helping me, he will come after you too." "I can handle Marcus Thornton," Preston said firmly. "Now finish your dinner. You need your strength." That night, Preston made a bed for himself on the floor near the fireplace while Catherine returned to the bedroom upstairs. He lay awake for hours, listening to the sounds of the house, every creak and groan making his hand drift toward his gun. But the night passed quietly, and when dawn broke, Catherine came downstairs looking slightly more rested. "I am going to ride out to Jack's place now," Preston said. "There is food in the pantry if you get hungry. Do not answer the door for anyone. If someone comes and I am not back yet, go up to the bedroom and hide. There is a loose board under the bed that leads to a crawl space. My father built it during the war just in case. You could fit in there and no one would find you." Catherine's eyes widened. "You really think someone will come?" "I think it pays to be prepared," Preston said. "I will be back in a few hours. You have my word." He saddled Maverick, his fastest horse, and rode west toward Jack's ranch. The morning air was crisp and cool, the mountains standing stark against the blue sky. Montana was beautiful, wild country, and Preston loved every inch of it. This was his home, his land, and he would defend it against anyone who tried to bring violence here. Jack Morrison's ranch was smaller than Preston's, but well maintained. Jack himself was working in his corral when Preston rode up, training a young horse. He was a few years older than Preston, with sandy hair and a weathered face that spoke of years spent under the sun. "Preston," Jack called out, wiping his hands on his pants. "This is a surprise." "What brings you out here so early?" Preston dismounted and tied Maverick to the fence rail. "I need your help, Jack, and I need you to keep what I am about to tell you confidential." Jack's expression turned serious. "You have got my attention. What is going on?" Preston told him everything, about finding Catherine in his barn, about Marcus Thornton and what he had done to her, about the danger that was coming. Jack listened without interrupting, his face growing darker with each detail. "That son of a bitch," Jack said when Preston finished. "I always knew Thornton was a bastard, but this is beyond anything I imagined." "Will you help me?" Preston asked. "I cannot fight off his men alone, and I will not hand her over to that monster." "Of course I will help," Jack said immediately. "What do you need?" "I need someone I can trust watching my back," Preston said. When Thornton's men come, and they will come, I need to know I am not alone. Catherine deserves a chance at freedom, and I aim to give it to her." Jack studied Preston for a long moment. "You care about this girl, do not you?" "It is not just about doing the right thing." Preston felt heat rise in his face. "I just met her yesterday. I barely know her." "That was not a no," Jack said with a slight smile. "Look, I will help you because it is the right thing to do, and because Thornton has been a bully in this valley long enough. But Preston, be careful. A woman who has been through what she has been through, she is going to have scars, not just the ones you can see." "I know," Preston said quietly. "I am not expecting anything from her. I just want to keep her safe." "All right then," Jack said. "I will ride over to your place this afternoon, bring my rifle. We will work out a plan together. In the meantime, you should get back to her. She is probably scared out of her mind being alone." Preston nodded and swung back into the saddle. As he rode home, he thought about Jack's words. Did he care about Catherine beyond just wanting to help her? He had only known her for a day, had barely spoken to her. But there was something about her, something that called to him. Her courage in running, in fighting for her freedom. The way she tried so hard to be strong even when she was terrified. The vulnerability in her eyes that she tried to hide. Maybe Jack was right. Maybe this was more than just about doing the right thing. When Preston arrived back at his ranch, everything looked undisturbed. He put Maverick in the barn and headed for the house. Catherine opened the door before he could knock, relief flooding her face. "You came back," she said, and there was surprise in her voice. "I said I would," Preston replied, stepping inside. "Did you think I would not?" Catherine looked away. "In my experience, men do not keep their promises." "Then your experience has been with the wrong men," Preston said firmly. "Jack Morrison is coming by this afternoon. He is a good friend, and he is going to help us. You can trust him." Catherine nodded slowly, though Preston could see the doubt in her eyes. He could not blame her. After what she had been through, trusting anyone would be difficult. Jack arrived as promised, riding in with his rifle slung across his back. Preston introduced him to Catherine, and Jack was careful to be respectful, keeping his distance and his voice gentle. "Madam," Jack said, tipping his hat, "Preston told me what you have been through. I want you to know that you have my protection as well as his. Marcus Thornton will not take you anywhere you do not want to go, not while I have breath in my body." Catherine's eyes welled with tears. "Why? Why would you risk yourselves for me? You do not even know me." "Because it is right," Jack said simply. "And because men like Thornton need to be stood up to. He has had his way in this valley for too long." The three of them sat around Preston's table, discussing strategy. Jack suggested they contact a few other ranchers, men they could trust who had no love for Thornton. Preston agreed, knowing they would need numbers to stand against Thornton's hired guns. "What if we went to the territorial marshal?" Catherine asked. "If the local sheriff is corrupt, maybe someone with more authority would help." "The nearest marshal is in Helena," Preston said. "That is at least 2 days' ride, and we would have to send word and wait for him to come back. We do not have that kind of time." "Then, what do we do when they come?" Catherine asked, fear creeping back into her voice. "We stand our ground," Preston said. "This is my property. Thornton has no legal right to enter it or to take you by force. If he tries, we defend ourselves." "He could claim I stole from him," Catherine said. "He could make up any lie, and people would believe him over me." "Then we make sure there are plenty of witnesses to the truth," Jack said. "Respectable men who can testify to your condition when Preston found you, to the fact that you came here seeking refuge. It is harder to spread lies when the truth is well documented." They talked for hours, planning and preparing. Jack left as the sun was setting, promising to return the next morning with 2 other ranchers he trusted, men who would stand with them. Preston watched him ride off, then turned to find Catherine standing on the porch, silhouetted against the fading light. "Thank you," she said softly. "I know I have said it before, but I do not think I can say it enough. You are risking everything for me." "You are worth the risk," Preston said, and he meant it. Catherine turned to look at him, and for a moment something passed between them, a connection fragile and new but real. Then she looked away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I am going to get dinner started," she said, retreating into the house. Preston stood on the porch a while longer, watching the stars begin to emerge in the darkening sky. He knew the calm would not last. The storm was coming, and when it did, he needed to be ready. The next morning, Jack returned as promised, bringing with him 2 other ranchers. Thomas Gray was a man in his 40s, solid and dependable, who owned a spread to the south. Daniel Reed was younger, closer to Preston's age, quick-witted and good with a gun. Both men listened as Preston explained the situation, and both agreed without hesitation to help. "Thornton has been pushing his weight around for years," Thomas said. "About time someone pushed back." They spent the day fortifying Preston's ranch, setting up watch positions and making sure they had clear lines of sight in all directions. Catherine stayed inside mostly, watching from the windows. Preston could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she jumped at sudden sounds. She was expecting the worst, and he could not blame her. That evening, as the men shared a meal that Catherine had helped prepare, there was almost a sense of normalcy. Stories were told, jokes shared. Catherine even smiled a few times, though the expression looked rusty, as if she had not used it in a long time. "You are a fine cook, Miss Walsh," Daniel said as he finished his second helping of stew. Catherine blushed. "It is the least I can do, since you are all risking so much for me." "We are not risking it for obligation," Thomas said kindly. "We are doing it because it is right. You deserve freedom and safety same as anyone." After dinner, the men settled in for the night. Thomas and Daniel would take turns keeping watch, making sure no one approached the ranch undetected. Jack had gone home for the night but would return first thing in the morning. Preston found Catherine washing dishes at the basin, her movements mechanical. He picked up a towel to dry. "You do not have to do that," Catherine said. "You have done so much already." "I do not mind," Preston said. They worked in comfortable silence for a while before he spoke again. "How are you holding up?" "Really?" Catherine was quiet for a long moment. "I keep waiting to wake up, waiting for this to be a dream, or for it to turn into a nightmare. I keep expecting you to demand payment for your help, to show your true colors." Preston set down the plate he was drying and turned to face her. "Catherine, look at me." She did, her green eyes meeting his brown ones. "I am not going to hurt you," Preston said slowly, clearly. "I am not going to demand anything from you. When this is over, when you are safe, you will be free to go wherever you want, do whatever you want. I am helping you because it is right, not because I expect something in return. Do you understand?" Catherine's eyes filled with tears. "I want to believe you. I want to trust you. But I am so scared. I am scared that Marcus will find me, that he will kill you and your friends, that I will end up back in that house. I am scared that even if I get away, I will never feel safe again. I am scared that I am broken, that what he did to me has ruined me forever." Without thinking, Preston reached out and gently touched her shoulder. To his surprise, she did not flinch away. "You are not broken," he said firmly. "You are strong. You survived something terrible and you found the courage to escape. That is not weakness. That is strength. And you will feel safe again, I promise you that." A tear rolled down Catherine's cheek. "How can you promise that?" "Because I am going to make sure of it," Preston said. "You are not alone anymore, Catherine. You have people on your side now. You have me." She stared at him for a long moment, then slowly, hesitantly, she leaned forward and rested her forehead against his chest. Preston stood very still, hardly daring to breathe, as she sobbed quietly against him. He carefully, gently, wrapped his arms around her, offering comfort and nothing more. They stood like that for several minutes until Catherine's tears subsided. She pulled back, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "I am sorry," she said. "I did not mean to fall apart like that." "You have nothing to apologize for," Preston said. "You have been through hell, you are allowed to cry." Catherine managed a watery smile. "You are a good man, Preston Cole, better than I thought existed." "I am just trying to do right," Preston said. "Now you should get some rest. Tomorrow might be difficult." Catherine nodded and headed upstairs. Preston watched her go, his chest tight with emotions he could not quite name. He had meant what he said. She was not broken. She was strong and brave and beautiful, inside and out, and he would do whatever it took to keep her safe. The attack came 2 days later, just after dawn. Preston was outside checking on the horses when he heard the sound of multiple riders approaching. He immediately went on alert, calling out a warning to the others. Thomas and Daniel emerged from the barn where they had been sleeping, weapons in hand. Jack rode in from the direction of his ranch, having seen the approaching riders and guessed their intent. Catherine appeared in the doorway of the house, her face pale. "Is it them?" "Get inside," Preston ordered. "Stay away from the windows." 6 riders crested the hill and approached the ranch at a steady pace. Preston recognized Henry Burke from Catherine's description, a big man with a cruel face. The others were hired guns, exactly what Preston had expected. The riders stopped about 50 yards from the house. Burke leaned forward in his saddle, his eyes scanning the property. "Preston Cole," Burke called out. "We know you are harboring stolen property. Send out the girl and we will leave peacefully." "Stolen property?" Preston called back, anger surging through him. "She is a human being, not property, and she is under my protection. You need to leave. Now." Burke's face twisted into an ugly expression. "Marcus Thornton has legal claim to that girl. Her father sold her to cover his debts, all proper and documented. She ran off with items that did not belong to her. That is theft. Now send her out or we will come in and get her." "No legitimate court would uphold that claim," Jack called out, moving to stand beside Preston. "You cannot sell a human being. That is called slavery and it ended in 1865. Maybe you heard about it." "This is not your concern, Morrison," Burke said. "Step aside or you will regret it." "I stand with Preston," Jack said firmly, "as do these other men." "You are outnumbered, Burke. Ride back to Thornton and tell him the girl is not for sale, not for trade, and not for taking. She is free." Burke's hand moved toward his gun, and instantly 4 rifles were trained on him. He froze, calculating the odds. His men shifted uneasily, clearly not liking the situation. "You are making a big mistake, Cole," Burke said, his voice cold. "Marcus Thornton does not take kindly to people who cross him. He will bury you and your friends. Tell Thornton if he has a legal claim, he can take it to the territorial court," Preston said. "But he will not take Catherine Walsh from this ranch by force. That is my final word on the matter." Burke stared at them for a long, tense moment. Then he jerked his horse's reins and turned away. "This is not over," he shouted back as the riders galloped off. Preston did not lower his rifle until they were out of sight. Then he turned to see Catherine standing in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "They are going to come back," she said, "with more men. This time they will not just talk." "Maybe," Preston said, moving toward her, "but we will be ready, and Catherine, you did not hide this time. You stood there and watched us defend you. That is progress." Catherine looked at him, something shifting in her expression. "You really meant what you said about protecting me?" Every word, Preston said. Over the next week, the tension remained high, but no further attacks came. Preston suspected Thornton was regrouping, planning a different approach. In the meantime, life on the ranch continued. Catherine slowly began to relax, though she was still easily startled. She helped with cooking and mending, insisting on earning her keep despite Preston's protests that she owed him nothing. Preston found himself looking forward to their evenings together, after the work was done and they would sit by the fire and talk. Catherine began to open up, telling him about her life before Thornton. She had been raised by her father after her mother died in childbirth when Catherine was 10. Her father had been a good man once, but after losing his wife, he turned to gambling and drinking. When the debts grew too large, he made a deal with Thornton, trading his daughter for his freedom. "I hated him for it," Catherine admitted one night, staring into the flames. "But I also understood. He was desperate. Thornton had threatened to have him killed if he did not pay up, so he gave him the only thing of value he had left, me." "That does not make it right," Preston said quietly. "No," Catherine agreed. "It does not, but it is done now. My father drank himself to death 2 months after I went to live with Marcus. I never got to tell him that I forgave him." "Do you?" Preston asked. "Forgive him?" Catherine was quiet for a long time. "I do not know. Some days I think I do. Other days I am so angry I can barely breathe." "Is that terrible?" "That is human," Preston said. "You are allowed to have complicated feelings about complicated situations." Catherine turned to look at him, the firelight casting shadows across her face. "How did you get to be so wise?" Preston chuckled. "I am not wise. I just try to see things clearly. My father used to say that most problems in the world come from people refusing to see the truth, even when it is right in front of them." "He sounds like he was a good man." "He was," Preston said. "Both my parents were. I miss them every day." "What happened to them?" Catherine asked gently. "Fever 3 years back," Preston said. "It swept through the valley. Took a lot of folks. I was away delivering horses to a buyer in Helena. By the time I got back, they were both gone. Sometimes I wonder if I could have saved them if I had been here." Catherine reached out and took his hand. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact, and the gesture made Preston's heart skip. "You cannot blame yourself for that. You could not have known." "I know," Preston said. "But knowing something and feeling it are two different things." They sat in comfortable silence, hands clasped, watching the fire burn down to embers. Preston felt something shift between them, something deeper than gratitude or protection. It scared him a little, how much he was beginning to care for this woman. How much he looked forward to seeing her smile, hearing her laugh, watching her slowly come back to life. The breakthrough came nearly 2 weeks after Catherine had first arrived. Preston was working in the corral, training one of his younger horses, when Catherine came out to watch. She leaned against the fence, her hair loose around her shoulders, wearing one of his shirts tied at the waist over a pair of his pants that she had altered to fit better. "You are good with them," she observed, watching as Preston guided the horse through its paces. "Horses are honest," Preston said. "They do not lie or deceive. If you treat them right, they will give you everything they have. If you treat them badly, they will never trust you." "Like people," Catherine said softly. "Like people," Preston agreed. He brought the horse to a stop and came to lean against the fence beside her. "Do you ride?" "I used to," Catherine said. "Before. My father taught me when I was young, but I have not been on a horse in years." "Would you like to?" Preston asked. "I have a gentle mare who would be perfect for you." Catherine hesitated, then nodded. "I think I would like that." Preston saddled up Sable, his gentlest horse, and led her out to the yard. Catherine approached cautiously, but when she reached out to stroke Sable's nose, the horse whickered softly and leaned into her touch. "She likes you," Preston said, smiling. I like her too, Catherine said, a genuine smile crossing her face. Preston helped her mount, careful not to touch her more than necessary. But once Catherine was in the saddle, something changed. Her posture straightened, her expression brightened. She looked free in a way Preston had not seen before. "Ready?" he asked, mounting Maverick. They rode out across the ranch at an easy pace, Catherine quickly finding her seat and rhythm. As they rode, Preston watched her transform. The tension left her shoulders, color returned to her cheeks, and she laughed, actually laughed, when Sable tossed her head playfully. "I forgot how wonderful this feels," Catherine called out, grinning at Preston. "Like flying. Want to go faster?" Preston asked. "Yes," Catherine said without hesitation. They urged their horses into a canter, then a gallop, racing across the open grassland with the mountains rising majestically around them. Preston could hear Catherine's laughter carried on the wind, and it was the most beautiful sound he had ever heard. When they finally slowed, both breathing hard, their faces flushed from exertion and joy, they stopped near a small stream that ran through Preston's property. They dismounted, letting the horses drink. "Thank you," Catherine said, turning to Preston. "Thank you for this. I feel more like myself than I have in months." "You are welcome," Preston said. "You should feel free, Catherine. You deserve to feel free." Catherine stepped closer to him, her eyes searching his face. "Preston, can I ask you something? Anything," he said. "Why have you not asked me about it?" "About what happened with Marcus. The details. Most people would want to know, would be curious." Preston met her gaze steadily. "Because it is your story to tell or not tell. What happened to you is your business. If you want to talk about it, I will listen. If you do not, I will respect that. I do not need to know the details to know that you were hurt and that you deserve better." Catherine's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not tears of sadness. "You really are different from other men." "I am just trying to be decent," Preston said. "It is more than that," Catherine said. She took another step closer until they were nearly touching. "Preston, I need to tell you something." "All right," Preston said, his heart beating faster. "When I first came here, I was so broken I thought I would never feel anything good again. I thought Marcus had destroyed something essential in me, that I would spend the rest of my life being afraid, being small. But you have shown me something different. You have shown me that there are still good men in the world, men who keep their promises. Men who protect without expecting anything in return, men who see women as people, not property." She paused, taking a shaky breath. "I am falling in love with you, Preston Cole, and it terrifies me, but I needed you to know." Preston felt as if the ground had shifted beneath his feet. He reached up and gently cupped her face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away her tears. "Catherine, I have been falling in love with you since the moment I saw you in that hayloft, trembling and terrified but still fighting. You are the strongest, bravest, most remarkable woman I have ever met. And if you will have me, I would like nothing more than to spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to hide again." "Are you sure?" Catherine whispered. "I am damaged. I have scars. I might have nightmares. I might never be fully whole again." "We all have scars," Preston said. "We all have damage, but that does not make us less worthy of love. Catherine Walsh, you are not broken. You are healing. And I would be honored to be part of that healing if you will let me." Catherine's answer was to rise up on her toes and press her lips to his. The kiss was gentle, tentative, a question more than a statement. Preston kissed her back carefully, letting her set the pace, letting her know that she was in control. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard, but this time it was not from fear or exertion. It was from possibility, from hope, from the beginning of something new. "We should head back," Preston said reluctantly, "before people start to worry." Catherine nodded, but she took his hand as they walked back to the horses, and she did not let go. That night, things changed between them. It was subtle, a shift in the air, in the way they looked at each other. Jack noticed when he came by the next morning a knowing smile on his face. "So," Jack said to Preston when they were alone. "Something happened. We talked," Preston said, trying to keep his voice neutral. "That is not all that happened," Jack said, grinning. "I have eyes, Preston, the way she looks at you, the way you look at her. If that is not love, I do not know what is." Preston did not deny it. "Is it too soon? She has been through so much." "The heart does not work on a schedule," Jack said. "Love happens when it happens. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" "I want to marry her," Preston admitted. "Is that crazy? I have known her less than a month." "Have you asked her?" Jack said. "Not yet," Preston said. "I want to make sure she is truly safe first. I want Thornton dealt with once and for all." As if summoned by their words, a rider appeared on the horizon, but this was not one of Thornton's men. It was a young boy from town, riding hard. He pulled up in front of the house, out of breath. "Mr. Cole," the boy gasped. "The sheriff is coming with a warrant for Miss Walsh's arrest. They will be here within the hour." Preston felt cold dread wash over him. "On what charge?" "Theft," the boy said. "Mr. Thornton claims she stole jewelry and money from him when she ran away." "That is a lie," Catherine said, having emerged from the house. "I took nothing. I ran with just the clothes on my back." "I believe you," Preston said, "but Thornton has the law in his pocket. We need to act fast." Jack's face was grim. "If they arrest her, Thornton will make sure she never sees the light of day again. We cannot let them take her." "We will not," Preston said. An idea was forming in his mind, desperate but possibly effective. "Catherine, do you trust me?" "With my life," she said without hesitation. "Then marry me," Preston said. "Right now. If you are my wife, I have legal rights as your husband. I can protect you in ways I cannot protect an unmarried woman taking refuge on my property." Catherine stared at him. "Preston, you do not have to do that. I do not want you to feel obligated." "I am not doing this out of obligation," Preston said, taking her hands. "I am doing this because I love you and I want you to be my wife. I know it is fast. I know it is not the proposal you deserve. But Catherine, will you marry me?" Catherine's eyes were bright with tears, but she was smiling. "Yes, yes, I will marry you. The preacher is in town," Jack said, "but we do not have time to get him here." "Then we do it ourselves," Preston said. "A declaration before witnesses. It is legal in the territory. Thomas, Daniel, you are both here. You can serve as witnesses." The two men nodded immediately. They gathered in Preston's living room, and Preston took Catherine's hands, looking into her eyes as he spoke. "Catherine Walsh, before these witnesses, I take you as my wife. I promise to protect you, to honor you, to never raise a hand against you in anger. I promise to stand beside you through whatever comes, to be your partner and your friend. I promise that you will never have to hide again, that you will always have a home and a place where you are safe and loved. This I swear, by everything I hold sacred." Catherine's voice was steady as she replied. "Preston Cole, before these witnesses, I take you as my husband. I promise to stand beside you, to support you, to build a life with you. I promise to trust you, even when it is hard, to open my heart to you, even when I am scared. I promise to be your partner, your friend, and your love for all the days we have together. This I swear with all that I am. By the power vested in me as a property owner and citizen of the Montana Territory," Jack said solemnly, "I declare you husband and wife. Preston, you may kiss your bride." Preston cupped Catherine's face and kissed her gently, sealing their union. When they pulled apart, Catherine was crying, but they were tears of joy. "Welcome to the family, Mrs. Cole," Jack said with a grin. The words had barely left his mouth when they heard the sound of horses approaching. The sheriff and his deputies had arrived. Preston stepped out onto his porch, Catherine beside him. their hands clasped. Jack, Thomas, and Daniel flanked them, presenting a united front. Sheriff Daniels dismounted, a piece of paper in his hand. He was a portly man in his 50s with small, mean eyes. "Preston Cole," Daniels said. "I have a warrant here for the arrest of Catherine Walsh on charges of theft. Hand her over." "That is Catherine Cole now," Preston said calmly. "My wife. We were married this morning before witnesses." Daniels's face turned red. "That does not change the fact that she is a criminal." "Show me evidence," Preston demanded. "Show me proof that my wife stole anything from Marcus Thornton." "Her very presence in his house was theft," Daniels blustered. "She owed him service." "She owed him nothing," Jack interjected. "You cannot owe service to someone who holds you against your will. That is called kidnapping, Sheriff. Or did they not teach you that?" "I know the law," Daniels snapped. "Then you know that a man has the right to protect his wife," Preston said. "And I am telling you, Sheriff, that Catherine has committed no crime. She escaped from a situation where she was being held unlawfully and abused. If you want to arrest someone, arrest Marcus Thornton for assault and false imprisonment." "You have no proof of that," Daniels said. "I have her testimony," Preston said. "And I have the evidence of my own eyes. When Catherine arrived at my ranch, she was covered in bruises, with cuts and injuries consistent with severe abuse. I have witnesses who saw her condition. Are you telling me that does not matter?" "It is her word against Marcus Thornton's," Daniels said. "And I know who I believe." "Then you are a corrupt coward who is more interested in protecting a rich man than enforcing justice," Jack said bluntly. Daniels's hand moved toward his gun, but he found himself facing 4 rifles immediately. He froze, realizing he was outmatched. "I suggest you leave," Preston said coldly. "Tell Thornton that Catherine is under my protection as my legal wife. If he has a problem with that, he can take it up with the territorial courts, but he will not take her from this ranch. Ever." Daniels glared at them, his face purple with rage, but he was smart enough to know when he was beaten. "Marcus is not going to let this stand. You have made a powerful enemy, Cole." "I can live with that," Preston said. The sheriff and his deputies mounted up and rode off, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. As soon as they were out of sight, Catherine sagged against Preston, her legs shaking. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." "We did it," Preston corrected, wrapping his arms around her. "You are safe now. You are my wife, and no one can take you away." Catherine buried her face in his chest, sobbing with relief. Preston held her, stroking her hair, murmuring reassurances. Jack, Thomas, and Daniel quietly excused themselves, giving the newlyweds privacy. That night, after everyone had left and the house was quiet, Preston and Catherine sat together by the fire. Catherine was curled up beside him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Are you all right?" Preston asked softly. "I am better than all right," Catherine said. "I am married to a man I love. I am safe. I have a home. A month ago I thought I would die in that house, that I would never know freedom or happiness again. And now look at me." "Look at you," Preston echoed, smiling. "You are the bravest person I know." "I was not brave," Catherine said. "I was terrified." "Being brave does not mean you are not scared," Preston said. "It means you do what needs to be done despite being scared. You escaped Thornton. You survived. You found the strength to trust again, to love again. That is courage." Catherine turned to look up at him. "I do love you, Preston. So much it scares me sometimes. What if something happens? What if Thornton finds a way to hurt you?" "Then we will deal with it together," Preston said. "You are not alone anymore, Catherine. You will never be alone again." They kissed, and this time it was deeper, more passionate. When they pulled apart, both were breathing hard. "I want to be your wife," Catherine said softly, "in every way, but I need you to be patient with me. There are things that might be difficult, memories that might surface." We have the rest of our lives, Preston said gently. There is no rush. We move at your pace always. Catherine smiled, and it was the most beautiful thing Preston had ever seen. How did I get so lucky to find you? I think I am the lucky one, Preston said. Now let us get some sleep. Tomorrow we start our life together. The next few weeks were some of the happiest of Preston's life. Catherine blossomed in the safety and security of their marriage, slowly shedding the fear that had weighed her down. She laughed more, smiled more, and gradually became comfortable with physical affection. Preston was endlessly patient, letting her set the pace, never pushing, always waiting for her signal. They worked the ranch together, Catherine proving to be a quick learner and a hard worker. She learned to help with the horses, to mend tack, to keep the books. In the evenings, they would sit together and talk or raid, or simply enjoy each other's company. Marcus Thornton made no further moves against them, though Preston remained vigilant. He suspected the man was biding his time, looking for an opening. But as weeks turned into months with no attack, Preston began to relax. It was 3 months after their wedding when Catherine came to him with news that changed everything. "Preston," she said one morning, her face glowing, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" Preston asked, setting down the bridle he was repairing. "I am with child," Catherine said, her hand moving to rest on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby." Preston felt joy explode through him like sunshine. He swept Catherine into his arms, spinning her around as she laughed. "A baby! We are going to have a baby. Are you happy?" Catherine asked, though she could clearly see the answer on his face. "Happy does not begin to cover it," Preston said, setting her down gently and cupping her face in his hands. "You have given me everything, Catherine. Everything I never knew I wanted. I love you so much." "I love you too," Catherine said. "And I am not scared anymore, Preston. I am not hiding. I am building a life, a family with you." They kissed, and it was a kiss full of promise, of future, of forever. The baby, a boy they named Daniel after Preston's father, was born on a cool spring morning. Catherine labored through the night, with Preston holding her hand and a midwife from town guiding her through. When the baby finally arrived, his lusty cries filling the room, Preston wept with joy. "He is perfect," Catherine said, exhausted but radiant as she held their son. "He is absolutely perfect." Preston looked down at his wife and child, his family, and felt his heart swell with an almost painful intensity of love. "You are both perfect, my whole world right here in this room." As young Daniel grew, the ranch prospered. Preston expanded his horse breeding operation, gaining a reputation for quality animals throughout the territory. Catherine proved to be an excellent mother and an equal partner in running the ranch. They hired on a young ranch hand to help with the workload, allowing Preston to spend more time with his family. Marcus Thornton died 2 years after Catherine left him, found dead in his study with a bottle of whiskey and a bullet in his brain. Some said it was suicide. Some said it was murder. Preston did not much care which. The man was gone, and the threat he posed was eliminated. With Thornton's death, the corruption in Weaverville began to crumble. A new sheriff was elected, an honest man who actually enforced the law fairly. The town began to change, to grow in healthier directions. Catherine thrived in her freedom. She became involved in the community, helping to establish a school and organizing efforts to help other women in difficult situations. She never forgot where she had come from, the darkness she had escaped, and she used her experience to help others find their own light. 3 years after Daniel's birth, Catherine gave Preston a daughter. They named her Rose after Preston's mother. She had her mother's green eyes and her father's dark hair, and she was spoiled shamelessly by her older brother. On the evening of their 5th wedding anniversary, Preston and Catherine sat on their porch, watching their children play in the yard. Daniel was 5 now, confident and curious, already showing an interest in the horses. Rose was 2, a whirlwind of energy and laughter. "You remember the first night I stayed here?" Catherine asked, leaning against Preston's shoulder. "How terrified I was." "I remember," Preston said, wrapping his arm around her. "You were trembling so hard I thought you might shake apart." "I thought I would die," Catherine admitted. "Either from fear or from Thornton finding me. I never imagined this. A home, a family, happiness. You gave me all of that." "We gave it to each other," Preston corrected. "You saved me just as much as I saved you, Catherine. Before you came, I was just going through the motions. Working the ranch, living day to day, but not really living. You brought light and love and purpose into my life. You made me want to be better, to do better." Catherine turned to look at him, her eyes soft with love. "Do you know what the best part is? I am not hiding anymore. I am not trembling in some dark corner, waiting for the next blow to fall. I am standing in the light, living my life, raising my children. I am free." "You promised me you would never hide again," Preston said, smiling, "and you kept that promise." "We both kept our promises," Catherine said. "Every single one." They kissed as the sun set over the Montana mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. Their children's laughter rang out across the ranch, a sound more beautiful than any music. The years continued to pass in contentment and prosperity. Daniel grew into a fine young man, strong and capable like his father, with his mother's compassion and intelligence. Rose inherited her mother's courage and her father's integrity. Both children grew up knowing they were loved, knowing they were safe, never having to hide or fear. Preston expanded the ranch further, eventually owning one of the largest and most successful horse breeding operations in the territory. But he never let success change who he was. He remained the steady, honorable man who had found a terrified woman in his hayloft and promised her safety. Catherine became known throughout the region for her charity work and advocacy for women's rights. She helped establish safe houses for women escaping dangerous situations, using her own experience to guide and comfort others who had walked similar paths. She spoke at town meetings, organized fundraising efforts, and never backed down from fighting for what was right. Jack Morrison remained their closest friend, a constant presence in their lives and a beloved uncle figure to their children. Thomas and Daniel Reed also stayed close, their ranches forming a network of mutual support and friendship that strengthened the entire community. On their 10th anniversary, Preston took Catherine back to the spot by the stream where they had first kissed. The children were spending the night with Jack, giving the couple a rare evening alone. "I wanted to bring you here," Preston said, taking both her hands in his, "to the place where everything changed for us, where you told me you were falling in love with me, and I told you the same." "I remember every word," Catherine said, smiling. "I remember how terrified I was, not of you but of what loving you meant. It meant opening myself up, making myself vulnerable. After everything I had been through, that was the scariest thing imaginable. And yet you did it anyway," Preston said. "You chose love over fear." "Because you made it safe to love," Catherine said. "You showed me that not all men are like Marcus Thornton or my father. You showed me that there are still good, decent people in the world, people who keep their promises." Preston pulled out a small box from his pocket. "I know we are already married. I know I already gave you my grandmother's ring all those years ago, but I wanted to give you something else, something to commemorate a decade of building a life together." He opened the box to reveal a delicate silver locket. Catherine gasped, tears springing to her eyes as Preston opened it to show tiny photographs of their children inside. "It is beautiful," Catherine whispered. "Preston, it is perfect." He fastened the locket around her neck, his fingers gentle against her skin. "I love you, Catherine Cole, today, tomorrow, and every day after that. You are my heart, my home, my everything." "And you are mine," Catherine said, pulling him close for a kiss. "Forever and always." They stayed by the stream until the stars came out, lying on a blanket and watching the heavens wheel above them. They talked about their children, their dreams for the future, the life they had built together from ashes and fear and trembling hope. "You ever think about that morning?" Preston asked. "When I found you in the hayloft." "Sometimes," Catherine admitted. "Usually when I am having a particularly good day, I think about how far I have come, how different my life is now. That girl in the hayloft, she could never have imagined this happiness, this peace." "She survived so that you could have it," Preston said. "She was strong enough to run, brave enough to hide, and courageous enough to accept help when it was offered. She should be proud of what she built." "We built it together," Catherine said firmly. "I could not have done any of this without you." "We were meant to find each other," Preston said. "I truly believe that. The universe or God or fate, whatever you want to call it, brought you to my barn that morning, brought you to me." "I believe that too," Catherine said. "And I will spend the rest of my life being grateful for it." More years passed, bringing both joys and sorrows as all lives do. Preston's horses won awards at territorial fairs. Daniel fell in love with a rancher's daughter and married her in a beautiful ceremony on the Cole ranch. Rose showed a talent for teaching and opened her own school in Weaverville. Catherine's advocacy work led to new laws protecting women and children from abuse and exploitation. There were hard times too. A drought one summer nearly broke them, but the community they had helped build rallied around them. An influenza outbreak took Jack Morrison when he was only 52, leaving a hole in all their hearts. But through it all, Preston and Catherine faced each challenge together, their love only growing stronger with time. On their 20th anniversary, surrounded by their children, their grandchildren, and friends too numerous to count, Preston stood to make a toast. "20 years ago," he began, his voice strong despite the gray now threading through his hair, "I made a promise to a terrified woman I found hiding in my hayloft. I promised her that she would never have to hide again, that she would always be safe, always be protected, always be loved. It is the best promise I ever made, and the best thing I ever did was keep it. Catherine, my love, you have given me a life beyond my wildest dreams. You have been my partner, my friend, my greatest adventure. Here is to 20 more years and then 20 after that, and as many as we are blessed to have together." Catherine stood, tears streaming down her face, and raised her own glass. "Preston Cole found me at my lowest point, broken, terrified, without hope. He did not just save my life. He gave me a reason to live it. He showed me what love really means. Not possession, not control, but partnership and respect and genuine care. He kept every promise he ever made to me, and I intend to keep every promise I made to him. To my husband, my hero, my heart, I love you beyond measure." The gathered friends and family cheered, glasses clinking, children laughing. As the celebration continued into the night, Preston pulled Catherine aside, leading her out onto the porch where they had spent so many evenings over the years. "Happy?" he asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Happier than I ever thought possible," Catherine said, leaning back against him. "You know, sometimes I still cannot quite believe this is my life. That I get to wake up every morning next to you in this beautiful home with our wonderful children and grandchildren. It feels like a dream." "It is real," Preston assured her, pressing a kiss to her temple. "As real as you and me. As real as that morning I climbed up into the hayloft and found you. That was the beginning of everything." "No," Catherine said, turning in his arms to face him. "That was not the beginning. That was the moment I stopped merely surviving and started living. The beginning was when I chose to trust you, when I chose to believe that maybe, just maybe, not all men were monsters, when I chose love over fear. Then I am grateful every day that you made that choice, Preston said, because I cannot imagine my life without you in it. They stood together on that porch, bathed in the light spilling from the windows behind them, the sounds of their family celebrating within. The Montana night was cool and clear, the stars brilliant overhead. Somewhere in the distance, a coyote called out, and one of Preston's horses answered with a whinny. "You remember what you said to me that first day?" Catherine asked. "When I told you I should keep running." "I said you were not going to run anymore," Preston replied. "That you were not going to hide, that I was going to protect you, and that was a promise." "And you kept it," Catherine said, her voice thick with emotion. "Every single day for 20 years you have kept that promise. I never had to hide again. Not from Thornton, not from my past, not from anything. Because you stood beside me, you stood up for me, you loved me without reservation or condition." "It was the easiest promise I ever kept," Preston said. "Because loving you, protecting you, standing beside you, it has been the greatest privilege of my life." As they stood there, holding each other under the vast Montana sky, Catherine thought back to that terrified girl in the hayloft. The one who had run through the night with bloody feet and a bruised body, certain she was going to die. She thought about how that girl would feel if she could see this moment, this life, this love. She would not believe it was possible, but it was. It was real and solid and true. And it had all started with one cowboy who climbed a ladder, found her trembling in the hay, and promised her safety. Who saw a human being in need instead of a burden or an opportunity. Who offered his hand and never took it back. That girl in the hayloft had hidden for the last time. The woman she became, the woman standing on this porch in her husband's arms, would never hide again. She stood in the light now, fearless and free, exactly as Preston had promised all those years ago. And she would continue to stand in that light, beside the man she loved for all the days she had left. Not hiding, not trembling, not afraid, just living, loving, and being fully, completely herself. The promise had been kept. The life had been built. The love had been earned and returned 1,000-fold. And in a world that had once seemed dark and hopeless, Preston Cole had found her light, her home, her forever. All because a cowboy found her hiding in the hayloft one summer morning and promised her she would never hide again. A promise that changed everything. A promise that saved her life. A promise that led to a love story that would endure for all their days and echo in the lives of their children and grandchildren for generations to come. As the celebration continued inside and the night deepened around them, Preston and Catherine remained on the porch, holding each other close, grateful for every moment that had led them here, to this perfect present, built from a terrifying past and promising an even brighter future. Together, always together, standing in the light they had created from darkness, living the life they had fought so hard to build, never hiding, never afraid, never alone, always loved, forever.